Good morning, and I hope everybody is well. I know that this has been a sort of a long awaited uh, share. So, without any further ado, let's start. The first thing that we have to learn in Mesillat Yesharim and that we have to know is that when the Ramchal, what the Ramchal wants us to do is to understand that Mesillat Yesharim is based on Kabbalah, which we're not going to go through right now, but it's based on three triangles of three. I'm going to show you this. Rabbi Tatz did this for our group, and he showed us what these three of three are about. Each triangle shows what we have to attain, and there are three levels of attainment that we have to reach. The first is tzaddik. When we talk about tzaddik, we're not talking about a person who is quote unquote pious. When we talk about tzaddik, we talk about keeping Torah and mitzvot to its letter and exactly as it's supposed to be kept. So it's when we reach that pinnacle of tzaddik, we move into a realm called chassid. Chassid is not a ger chassid, a vishnitzer chassid. Chassid means that you go over and above that which you have to do. In other words, you do everything b'tzedek, in the correct way, and that's tzaddik. And then chesed is taking that further step. I think maybe the example we can use is when Mar Ukba and his wife went to take the Tomchei Shabbos and put it on the doorstep of people's homes. His wife said to him, "My husband, I think somebody's trying to see who we are. Let's run." So this is giving tzedakah in a way that is completely anonymous. And so the two of them ran and they found the shelter in a hut that was used for baking. That's chassidus. That's going the extra mile. That's doing more than you're supposed to do. And I think this hasn't started. It has. Okay. So that's chassid. So here we have tzaddik, here's chassid, and here's kadosh. Kadosh means that not only chassidus, but kadosh is going over and above what you're supposed to do, what you've done extra, and the pinnacle of being a kadosh is Ruach HaKodesh, and on top of that is Techiyat HaMetim. Techiyat HaMetim doesn't mean to attain resurrection of the dead, but to practice resurrection of the dead. Practice Techiyat, to be able to be Mechaye Metim. So what the Ramchal is telling us is that these are the 10 steps that Rav Pinchas ben Yair had listed in the Gemara. Torah brings us, Torah is down here because that's the basis. We have to involve ourselves in Torah. We have to involve ourselves in Torah and mitzvahs, obviously. But we also have to have something that is moser, that pulls us towards something else. That's moser. We start with zehirut, always starting from left to right, and ending in a harmony of the left and the right, just like in Kabbalah. So we start with zehirut. What is zehirut? Zehirut is spiritual care. It's the unlimited version of spirituality. Whenever we talk about the left, we're talking about a global picture. When we're talking about the right, we're talking about more tzimtzum, because that's the feminine quality. The overall far-reaching picture is the masculine quality, and tzimtzum is the female quality, and it comes into that pinnacle called harmony, so that takes what is important from the left and what is important from the right, developed so that it becomes harmonious in its whole. So zehirut on the one side is caution, doing everything very carefully, doing everything in a way that is zahir. It's spiritual care, it's unlimited. It then, once we take that tentative step, we can get to zrizut, acting with energy and zeal and leaping into action. You know, in Pirkei Avos it says, "Heve az kanamer v'kal kanesha ratz katzvi v'gibor kari, lasot ritzon avicha shabashamayim." So the zrizut is what we're talking about here, leaping into action. And Rav Yehuda ben Tamar, which is what Rav Yehuda ben Tamar in Pirkei Avot Perek Hey, Mishnah Chaf says, Heve az kanomer v'kal kanesher ratz katzvi v'gibor kari lasot ritzon avicha shabashamayim, which then brings us to pinnacle, which is nikiyut. Nikiyut, although we translate it as being cleanliness, it's clean of ulterior motives. What we are doing solely because HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us to do it. That's what nikiyut is. Just as a disclaimer, most of what I'm saying to you is that this is what Rabbi Akiva Tatz taught us in a webinar session, and I have his permission to teach it to you. So whatever I say is not my own. It's what I've heard from Rabbi Tatz or other mefarshim that I might bring in, but it's with permission. Level number 2. A person who's a tzaddik has now perfected his zrizut, his zehirut, his zrizut, or her zehirut and zrizut, until it becomes nikiyut, until it becomes that clear of any kind of gum of I'm doing it for myself. So we start all over again in Chassidus. What does it mean, Chassidus? So we start first, prishut. What is prishut? Prishut is abstinence and detachment, which brings us to tahara. Purity, not in cleanliness, but in connection. When we talk about Tuma and Tahara, especially when we talk about Briat Olam, before Adam and Chava partook of whatever it is the Eitz Hadat was, they were able to discern completely Ben Tov L'Ra. It was just black and white. It was total connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What they introduced into their own system, and these are the mefarshim in Bereshis, is a measure of tum'ah. Tum'ah is blockage, spiritual blockage, ruchniistika blockage. So just like nikiyut is cleanliness, that is connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where the kinorim, where there's an open line of communication with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Tuma is the opposite of that, and that is the blockage. We have to overcome the blockage, dissolve the blockage in order to reestablish the connection. So Tahara is connection. And that brings us to Chassidut. And over here, Chassidut means positive movement beyond the self and beyond what one is required to do. So everything that we do in Musar Everything that we do in Torah and mitzvahs, everything that we do in life is what? Is connection with Hashem. That's what we're doing. Then the third pinnacle is the Kadosh. Kadosh starts on the left with anava, humility. Hatznei alechet im Hashem Elokecha. What is Hatznei alechet? Hatznei alechet is that we do things not with fanfare, not shouting to the whole world that this is what we're doing. Anava, Hatznei alechet, is doing what we're doing, stillerheit, quietly, in the way that Kokvuda bat melech pnima. What does that mean, Kokvuda bat melech pnima? That the inner chambers are the ones that absorb everything, not that we have to shout it from the rooftops because we're so great. We're not so great. And that's what anava is. Anava is Hatznei alechet. Then we get to Yirat HaChet. So there are three levels. Here's Yirat HaChet. There are three levels. Level one of Yira is Yirat HaChet. What is Yirat HaChet? Yirat HaChet is, I know that I have to do what Hashem wants me to do. I have to do it because there's schar v'onesh. But there's a second Yira. And that second Yira is a Yira of awe and reverence. I don't do it because it's Yirat HaChet. I don't do it because I'm afraid that I'm going to be punished for it, but I do it because I don't want to disappoint. I have that feeling within me, that Yira within me, that awe within me that says, we want to do exactly what Hashem wants us to do. B'sheket, b'shalva, quietly, well, not shalva, shalva is for olam haba. B'sheket, quietly, because of our complete awe, because of our complete fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of the Chet. Eventually, we will be doing this with the Yira that is out of reverence for Hashem. But in between comes that level of Ahava. What is Ahava? Ahava is giving. What is the giving? We do. When we do have, we bring to Hashem. We do the mitzvot Hashem. We build up that relationship with Hashem, just as we build up that relationship between human beings. We build up that relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We build that up so that we can get to the second Yira, which is reverence, which is awe, which is wanting to do it because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be proud, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be able, we are going to show that we are the tzinor. I think that is really the crux of creator mode, where we are that tzinor that shines forth, and that through us comes that Avas Hashem right throughout. The third, the pinnacle of Anava and Yirat HaChet, when we put the two of them together and we get the exact right mixture, we get to the pinnacle of Kedusha. What is Kedusha? Kedusha is separated. Kedoshim Tiyu. That we are separate. I don't like the word holy. I'm allergic to the word. Kedusha is that specialness of being different, and of being set aside, and of being where we need to be. That Kedusha takes us to Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh is that notch below Nevuah, because in our time, we don't have Nevuah anymore. We are left without Nevuah. One of Esther Wine's shiurim, she was talking about that Nevuah at least was hadracha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us, giving us that institutionalizing what we needed to do. It was guided. Today we don't have that guide. We don't have those guidelines. We have the guidelines of Torah and what the Nevi'im gave us so that we can build on that and we can get to a point where we could be practicing Tichiyat HaMetim. So that is what Ramchal is telling us should be our mode of thinking. When we look into Mesillat Yesharim, he's giving us a pathway, a Mesillah, a derech, a highway on which to travel so that we can get to the path that is Yashar, that is the straightest, that path that we would be able to get closest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu without being totally enveloped by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which means that we would no longer be a human substance and we would no longer be here. Moshe Rabbeinu came closest to that, Karan or Panav, where he was so full of the Kedusha, of that special light, that Karan or Panav, he radiated it physically throughout his visage. That's what we might be able to aim for, but it doesn't mean that we aim for the sky, and if we aim for the sky, we might just get close. So these are the attributes that we have to look at, and they are we look at them in a disassembled fashion, and we have to use our power of Yetzer, of formation. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made everything. Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. The Rashi in Bereshit says that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, first of all, he had to create Reshit, and second of all, he had to create Tohu Vavohu v'Choshech. All of those are creations. From those creations come other creations. So too, we have within us the ability, liyatzer, to form, to use the raw material that Hashem's put inside of us, to form what we need in order to get to a different place. We have Bria, which is Yesh Me'ayin, something from nothing, ex nihilo. Then comes Yetzira. Yetzira is the formation, and then comes Asiya. The formation is already there. We've taken the raw materials, we've made them into something. You make a cake, okay? We don't do a bria because we put it all together. Everything that we use are materials that we have at our fingertips. We put them all together. We are yotzer at the cake. We create the cake, and then we put the icing on top. That's the asiya. So we put all this together in order to be able to reach that pinnacle of being creator mode that we strive to be. When the pasuk tells us, Ki yetzer lev ha'adam ra min urav, Rabbi Tat says that ra doesn't mean that it's bad. It means that it's there, but somehow it broke, and it needs reconnection. The reconnection is what we do with that which is Ra. It's the Yotzei Dofen. It's that which has gone out of sync. We have to put it back into sync in order to be able to get the Yetzer Tov back into ourselves. So mankind was born with egocentricity. Every other creation is born with the ability to survive on its own. The human being needs a parent in the same way that all human beings need a HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we can see that from ourselves, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us, we're above Malachim. Malachim can only do one task at a time. That task that the Malach does, it will do that task and finish it and no longer be. We as human beings are able to develop ourselves, and we develop ourselves using the Yitzirot, the mold and the formation and the raw material that Hashem has put inside of us. So we're born with egocentricity, and we don't really shake that until for girls it's 12 and for boys it's 13. That is when the mind starts to accept what is incumbent upon it. So the Yetzer, again, it's a formative energy, and it's forming something that can be brought into a different realm, and that's the realm of Asiya, which exists as a finished product. So most people are capable of developing themselves through specialties, through who they are, what they are. I just heard um, a WhatsApp actually from Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, who said, "How do you know you're doing what you need to be doing when it's your will and the need that's out there that come together? Then you have that that hint that this is what you need to be doing." So too, the human being has that ability. We have that ability, and we have to tap into it. But we have broken pieces that we have to fix as well. That egocentricity that we have has to be overcome, and we have to be able to use it when it needs to be used and put it away when it doesn't need to be used. And that comes by trial and error. We also have this terrible habit of being distracted. We're not always able to concentrate fully on what we're supposed to do. Instead, we get distracted by media, we get distracted by what's going on outside. Perhaps in Florida, we get distracted by hurricanes. There are all sorts of distractions that there are in the world. We have to overcome those distractions in order to be able to develop ourselves properly. And therefore, we need a Mesillat. We need a pathway to be able to understand how we get from point A to point B. How do we take the zehirut, and all of us have male and female inside of us. Some of us have more of a tendency towards zehirut, towards being very cautious, and others just get up and get it done and that's it. But then we need the harmony of the two. So when we talk about the harmony, we talk about, look at the Avot. Avraham Avinu was chesed. Avraham Avinu was outer directed chesed. His chesed was all abounding. When he stood before HaKadosh Baruch Hu and he said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, "What are you doing? If you destroy Sodom and Amorah, there are going to be people, maybe there are people in there who need saving. How can you do this?" Hashem didn't strike him down and say, I know everything. No, Hashem says, let Abraham Avinu argue and develop what he felt was the argument that would perhaps save some people. Chesed, outer directed chesed. What's inner directed chesed? And this I'm telling you on my own, so you might quibble with me about it, but I think that it's correct. It's learning, having learned the Avot at Breshit in depth. My understanding is that inner directed chesed is selfishness. Outer directed chesed is kindness, doing for others. Inner directed, I'll think only about myself. What is the next piece? So we have to have self-discipline. Self-discipline is Gevura. Gevura was Yitzchak. Yitzchak was so on par in creator mode that when he said to Avraham Avinu, "Avi, are you my father still, or have you separated yourself from me?" And Avraham Avinu answered, that's just gone out of my head, Avi, Hineni B'ni. Hineni B'ni. You're still my son, and I am still here with you. They were on the way to the Akedah, they were on the way to the binding of Yitzchak, and he said, and the two of them went together. They went together in one mind and with one heart. They went together to the Akedah. What does Yitzchak say? When he realizes that he is going to be the sacrifice, he doesn't say, maybe there's going to be an animal up there, maybe we'll see. All Avram said was, Hashem, your Elam is, Hashem's going to show us, Hashem's going to make it come for us. Yitzchak said to Abraham, tie me more tightly, bind me more tightly so that I don't move and become flawed. At that moment, he was so totally in creator mode that there was a pre-shoot. There was a separation between Yitzchak and everyone else. I heard a shir, I think it was by Rabbi Y.Y. Rubenstein, where he said that Yitzchak, what did Yitzchak do? He dug wells. What is digging wells? Digging wells is learning Torah. That when we learn Torah, it's like a mayan. It's life-giving water. It's life-giving sustenance that comes from it. And what were the people around trying to do? They tried to cover those wells over. They tried to rout Torah out. And Yitzchak would dig new wells and bring the wellspring of Torah to the fore again. So Yitzchak was that ola tmima, that perfect sacrifice. What do we get when we take outer-directed chesed and inner-directed self-discipline? Because outer-directed self-discipline is going to be cruelty, right? I want what I'm going to be strict with you. Never mind what I'm doing, I'm going to be strict with you. When we get the conglomeration of the two, we get to emet. What is emet? Emet is truth. What is truth? From aleph to taf, from the first letter of the alphabet to the last, with the mem in the middle, all on one straight line. It's also Rebbe Tatz mentions this in other shiurim. Emet is truth. Sheker, you see, has two above the line and one that dips below. So you have to have a basis of truth in order to have a sheker, a lie, that is going to be believable. But emet brings us to pe'er. Pe'er is the beauty, is tiferet. And that is Yaakov Avinu. Abraham had Yitzchak and Yishmael. So with Yitzchak, he had the creator mode. Yishmael was survivor. Yitzchak had Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov was creator. He was the one who sat and learned Torah, but with learning Torah, he also had to live in a world that was full of not just people like himself, not just people like Shem Va'aver, but a Lavan. And with that Lavan, he still managed to stay within the realms of Emet and bring Pe'er and bring beauty and Tiferet and beautiful glory to Klal Yisrael. From Yaakov came all 12 Shvatim. So that is the first set of triangles that we're talking about. Chassidut. What is Chassidut? Chassidut does not come to the fore naturally. Chassidut one has to find and develop, and that develops within our own personal selves. We have to devise methods by which we can reach those deep qualities that are within us. What is easy is ego, pleasure seeking, laziness. How many times have we said to ourselves, oh, you know what, I'm just going to read a little bit of the book because, I need to just come back to myself. And we need to recognize that is the laziness that's within us. It comes naturally, and we have to overcome it. And how will we get to them if we don't develop them? If we don't find a way to develop all those good things that we find within ourselves. A child is born with egocentric self-interest, and the world is only an extension of that little child's self. The counterbalance to that, when the child becomes 12 or 13, is that the Yetzer HaTov exists in two chambers of your heart. Levavot, the two chambers. Yetzer Hara, Yetzer HaTov. You can form yourself one can form oneself into a materialistic person or a spiritual person. It exists within us and has to be directed towards the positive way. The power of that faculty, the power of the negative, is strong. There's a strong pull that we have. If we didn't have that pull, we would be like malachim. We would be like angels. We wouldn't have a choice. We would see it so clearly, so starkly. This is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. But that's not the way Hashem created the world. He created it where that pull is strong, and we have to overcome it, and we have to find a Mesillat. Notice that I'm bringing the Ramchal in all the time, because this is what he says in this introduction to the first chapter. Again, Ra means broken. Something is spiritually broken within ourselves. We need the energy with which to build it up. And the Ramchal is going to give us a method that we can adapt for ourselves to go from one stage to the next at our own pace and at the pace at which we can do. So not everybody is going to reach the pinnacle. The very special ones will reach the pinnacle, but we can all strive, and that's what we have to do. So since there are so many distortions and distractions, how can we think that we're going to have to spend all this time and energy on developing this kind of wisdom? So the spiritual Ruchnius takes work. Spirituality takes a lot of work. We can't just acquire spirituality. We can acquire a friend, we can acquire a fortune, but we can't just acquire spirituality. We have to work on it. We have to develop our talents. Everyone has their own talents. Which are the talents that we need to develop in our way? Perhaps somebody is more patient and doesn't have to work on patience, but is more distractible. We work on our talents, those talents that were put within us. We have those midot. We have those characteristics. They're intrinsic within us. And we have to bring them out and develop them so that we can serve Hashem using our own special and unique talents. We use our dark side, the dark forces within us, and transfer them from the dark to the light. For the women, Rabbi Tatz quoted Yamima Mizrahi and saying, Hashem taught us that we should have kniyot, we should acquire. So I do lots of kniyot. So I think so do you. I see a sale and boy, I'm there. You want the shoes, you want the whatever. And of course, the new shaitel, okay? But this isn't what he's talking about with kniyot. That's just a joke. Okay? The what we have acquired from within us, Hashem gave us to develop. And there are many, many obstructions that we're going to have in seeking spirituality because it doesn't come naturally, because it's not something that we can just pick up and then voila, that's it. We can be there. We have to work on it day and night and night and day. I'm talking so much to myself, I have to tell you, that you're giving me the opportunity of going through Mesillat Yesharim in the way that the Ramchal wants us to do it. Because he says you read through it, and then you don't just put it away and say, okay, now I know it. But you read through time and time again, as it said. And Tanya, thank you so much. I meant to start with this. Thank you so much for the introduction to the Ramchal and who he was. The Ramchal says that in order to learn Mesillat Yesharim, you have to go through it time and time and time again, because that's the only way that we can acquire it and we can make it into what is intrinsically ours. We can ingest it, we can digest it, and make it a part of who we are. So if we use the energy that Hashem put into us in perfecting our midot, and we seek to push the positive, and push the negative away, then we can use that charisma to attract people to us, and we can help them. And we can help them develop. Now, the best way of learning is to teach. But we have to know, also Pirkei Avot, lo habaishan lomed, someone who is shy, retiring wallflower, and doesn't ask any questions will not learn, because that person will not put their hand up and say, I have a question, which I hope that you will do a lot, and I won't promise to be able to answer it, but I do promise that if you come to me with something that I can't answer, I will definitely put it forward to Rabbi Tatz and see how we can work an answer out. The lo hakaptam melamed, a person who is so punctilious that it has to be done in exactly this way cannot be a good teacher, because a teacher has to be able to be malleable in his or her thoughts in order to move and to see what the student needs. Not every student needs the same thing, just like not every child in our family needs the same thing. So every person has within them what it is that they need to develop themselves. And we can do a lot more damage. So some people have, let's just say some people have poverty and some people have wealth. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi had huge wealth, a huge amount of wealth, and he did mitzvahs with them. Shlomo HaMelech had a huge amount of wealth, and every night was a siyum of bringing ruchnius into his palace. Some of us don't have that. Some of us struggle to make a living. Everything that we have everything that we need, and we need everything that we have in order to build ourselves up to that person that Hashem knows that we can be. And if at the end of one's life, in 120 years, when we're faced with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we're asked, why didn't you do, the story of Zusha, of course, that Zusha, who was such a tzaddik and who never complained, but just before, when he was on his deathbed, he was shivering with fear, and people around him said, Zusha, why are you afraid? What are you afraid of? He said, I'm not afraid that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to ask me, Zusha, why weren't you like Moshe Rabbeinu? I'm not afraid that Hashem's going to say, Zusha, why weren't you like Yosef HaTzadik? I'm afraid that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to say to me, Zusha, why weren't you all that Zusha could be? The same with us. When we're shown that movie of our lives, and after 120 years, and we see it, and we think, how am I going to ever get to Olam Haba? Rabbi Tatz has a whole big thing on that. I'm not going to go into that right now, but Kol Yisrael Yesharim Chelek L'Olam Haba. What does that mean? It's not so simple. We have to do a lot of work in order to get to that Chelek of Olam Haba, and to get to it in a position where we are the Baalim, where we are the participants and not sitting on the sidelines. So when Hashem, at the time that Hashem asks us, we have to have an acceptable answer for that. And we have to be careful with that answer, because we can only use it if we have attempted to make the adjustments in our personal lives that, if due to the circumstances we weren't able to come to our full potential, we might have a chance to do it again. If we have a chance to do it again, are we going to, you know what, in Hashem's world, there just isn't, there isn't a do-over in Olam Haba. Hashem gives us the exact circumstances, Rabbi Tat says, that, and I think it comes from Moshe Shapiro, that we're going to be able to, we'll have the opportunity to do. And if we fail there, then we've really failed. So we have to really be very careful with what we ask. Be careful what you ask for, is what the bottom line is. But we're going to be given credit for attempting to be the best that we can be in the three major branches of development, and that is Ahava and Yirah and Nora of Hashem. In fearing Hashem, which in one case is the fear is of Yirat HaChet, that we're afraid of doing sin, brings us to the Ahava, brings us to love of Hashem, because we are doing what Hashem requires of us in Torah and mitzvot, and brings us to Nora, the awesomeness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we then are able to fear Hashem in the right way, and not wanting self-gain, and not thinking about what it means to us personally, but to be that conduit through which HaKadosh Baruch Hu works in this world. So for this question, we have that answer that we have a chance for a do-over, but we have to be careful with it. So having given that introduction as a basis, I'd like to now move into the text itself. So there are two texts, two Sfarim that I have suggested that you get, and any other that you want to use. You can also, if you have Sefaria, that's a very, very good, Sefaria is a very good source of material, because you can click it. It does have Mesillat Yesharim. It also has the translation of Mesillat Yesharim. If you want a sefer with translation, this is the Feldheim version. And if you want something that's Ivrit Bivrit, you can look at, hold on a second, let me just get it for you. I'm going to ruin the pyramid here. Okay. And that is this one that has Nikudot, and you can read it quite clearly. It's Mesillat Yesharim HaMevu'ar. There are explanations, and it's also Ivrit Bivrit. So let's start. Amar HaMechaber. So this is going to have to go. The author says, when the Ramchal wrote Mesillat Yesharim, he promised that there was nothing new that he's saying in here. Rabbi Tat says, when he says that there's nothing new, he's right. There's nothing new, but everything is new. So, Amar HaMechaber. Hachibur hazeh lo chibartiv lelamed livnei adam et asher lo yadau. I haven't composed this to teach people what they don't know. Ela lahaskiram et hayadua lahem. I want to remind them of that which is known to them. Yadua lahem kvar, that's already known to them. Umfursam etzlam, pirsum gadol, and very familiar. They are very familiar with it. Ki lo timtza berov dvarai אלה דברים שרוב בני אדם יודעים אותם. I'm not putting anything in here that most people don't know about. ולא מסתפקים בהם כלל, or haven't researched them at all, אלא שכפי רוב פרסומו כנגד מה שאמיתתם גלויה לכל, but because they are so well known, and because it is so obvious to everyone, כך העלם מהם מצוי מאוד השכחה רבה. It becomes so comfortable that we tend to forget. על כן, therefore, אין התועלת הנלקט מזה הספר יוצא מן הקריאה פעם אחת. You cannot get the most out of this by only going through it once. כי כבר אפשר שלא ימצא הקורא בשכלו חידושים אחר קריאתו, because it could be that the person who reads it is not going to find anything new or different or innovative in here. שלא היו בו לפני קריאתו, that he hadn't had before he read it, אלא מעט, there might be in little bits and pieces. אבל התועלת יוצא מן החזרה עליו וההתמדה, and that's what you're helping me to do, because the review gives us that hatmada, that deeper knowledge. כי יזכרו לא הדברים האלה הנשכחים מידי האדם בטבע, because there are things here that people are going to forget naturally. That's people forget. People forget and they put it aside and we don't think about it. וישים על ליבו חובתו אשר הוא מתעלם ממנה, and he might overlook those things that he really has to tend to. ותראה, and you will see, אם תתבונן בהשם ברוב העולם, if you're going to try and understand about Hashem in the world, כי רוב אנשי השכל המהיר והפיקחים והחריפים ישימו רוב התבוננותם והסתכלותם בדקות החכמות ועומק העיונים. Most people who are very learned and who have done a lot of research and have depth in their knowledge, ish kefin netiat sichlo behishko hativi, every person according to what his own abilities are, yitruchu me'od b'mechkar habriya v'hateva v'acharim yitnu kol yunam litchuna u'lahandasa. A lot of different people are going to have different bents for different things. Some people are going to have a bent for chokhmah, for the nitty-gritty of wisdom, and be able to go into the depth of what they are learning. Everybody according to what he can do, because there's some who are going to be very thorough in their research and in sciences and astronomy, and others who are going to be mathematically inclined. Acharim limlachot, other people are going to have other works that they do. It could be art, it could be music, it could be any, or it could be the work of beautifying something. And then there are others who are going to go very deeply into things that are spiritual, or kedusha. Lahainu, like limud haTorah hakadosha, like learning Torah. They're going to go into the very depths and know every Rambam and Ramban and every Rashi on every parak and there might be those people. Mehem b'filfulei halachot, and those people who are so involved in the different nuances in halacha, mehem b'midrashim, that they learn in the Batei Midrash, mehem b'piskei halacha, or perhaps they'll use midrashim, or perhaps they'll know the psak halacha, they'll know the meaning of the halachot, and they give piskei halacha, they rule on shilas, they rule on questions. Ach ma'atim yiyu min hamin hazeh asher yikba'u iyun v'limud al inyanei shleimut ha'avodah. But few of them are going to be the kinds of people who are going to set time aside to go into the learnings about the shlemut of avoda, the depth of avodat Hashem, serving Hashem. Al ha'ava, about what does ahavat Hashem mean? How do I do it? What are the depths of this? Al hayira, and what about yira? Al dvarim ela ikrim etzlam. Oops, sorry, I skipped. Al hadvekut, or clinging to what Hashem has said and being able to be in creator mode. That's dvekut. But al kol she'ar chelkei chasidut, or all the other parts of going over and above what we're supposed to do, not because they're not important to them. Because if you'll ask them, they'll all say that this is the greatest thing that you have to do. And a person who is a truly wise person, a person who holds chachma in his hand, is going to know that in truth, he doesn't have everything. That all these things are not all that clear to them. But they're not going to take the time to study them because they think that it really is a lot more simple than one thinks. And that they don't have to spend a lot of time. So in essence, Musar was not something that was learned before the Ramchal brought this to the fore and brought it out in a way that he could step by step teach us how to use Musar. And Musar doesn't mean giving dissertations to somebody or telling somebody what to do. Musar is limsar, to be attached to these principles of ava, yira, and dvekut, of love of Hashem, of fear of Hashem, love of Hashem, and then knowing how to be able to be at one, to be the kli that is going to bring Hashem's presence into this world. And in fact, the Vilna Gaon said, and you read it in the notes that Tanya sent us, that if he had been alive at the time, if the Ramchal had still been alive at the time that he read the Mesillat Yesharim, he would have put all efforts together to go and to meet the Ramchal. I have to tell you a story about the Ramchal. That wasn't in the notes. The Ramchal finally made it to Eretz Yisrael. He didn't know it, but it was towards the end of his life. He only lived 39 years, and he did so much. And most of what he wrote, we don't have, because that was actually either hidden or it was or not there. The Ramchal finally made it to Eretz Yisrael, and he was in the Ariz Shul, and he stood at the very back. And while he was at the very back, he saw that the Shaliach Tzibor was waiting before Chazarat Hashatz. He went up to the Shaliach Tzibor, and he said to him, "For the sweat of a donkey, you don't have to wait. Go and start Chazarat Hashatz." Nobody knew who he was. It was his first time in the Arizal Shul, and nobody knew who this was, and was that he seemed to be so confident of what he was saying that the Shatz did go over. The Chazan did start Chazartas, the Shemona Esrei again out loud. Afterwards, the Rav of the Shul called the Ramchal over, and he said to him, "I don't understand. So the Ramchal said, you were contemplating about the sweat of a donkey on Shabbos, and it was Tircha de Tzibura, and I felt that it was the right time for the chazan to go to start. He said, how did you know that I was contemplating that very halacha? So when the Ramchal says that you can get to the madrega, the level of Ruach HaKodesh, of being just under Nevuah, he knew of what he spoke. Okay, next paragraph. ולא יישאר לימוד הדברים האלה וקריאת הספרים מזה המין, כי אם עצותם שאין שכלם כל כך דק וקרוב להיות גס. And therefore the study of this subject and reading through these Sfarim, these types of Sfarim, have become not the providence of people who are orangutan, deeply immersed in their learning, but people who it was thought that they aren't so strong in their learning. שאלה תראה אותם שוקדים על כל זה ולא יזוזו ממנו. And their minds are just so riveted on all the details of what this Musar is saying, that maybe they don't have the ability to delve into something of more depth. עד שלפי המנהג הנוהג בעולם, כשתראה אחד מתחסד, to the point where if you see someone who is trying to become a chassid in the way that we described chassid, of doing extra, לא תוכל למנוע מלחשוד אותו לגס השכל. You would not be able to help thinking that maybe this person is a little bit slow. ואולם, and the result is, תולדות המנהג הזה רעות מאוד לחכמים ולבלתי חכמים. This attitude is very bad for everyone. כי גורם שמאלה ומאלה יחסר החסידות האמיתי, because it keeps people from attempting to reach the true measure of Chassidut. And it's so important to have this midah of Chassidut in this world. Because too many Chachamim have not put themselves directly into this. We learn afterwards that the Gaonim of later years would say, I learned Mesillat Yesharim over and over and over again. Once it became revealed in the world and it became accepted in the world, people, as soon as the Vilna Gaon read it, he said, there is not a single extra word in the whole of Mesillat Yesharim. That's huge. That's huge. So, and those who don't have the inbred chokhmah aren't going to have the ability to get to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu really put into this world. עד שידמו רוב בני האדם שהחסידות תלוי באמירת מזמורים הרבה ווידויים ארוכים מאוד, קשים ותפילת קרח ושלג. And it got to the point that people thought that in order to be a chassid, you had to have extra fasts, and you had to say more and more tehillim, and you had to say vidui all the time. You had to admit to wrongdoings all the time, and have very difficult fasts, and say and roll in the snow. Kulam dvarim asher ein hasechel nach bahem, because these are things that the mind doesn't have to be occupied with, ve'ein hadat shoketa, and it doesn't satisfy dat. What is dat? We have chokhmah. Reshit chokhmah yirat Hashem. What is chokhmah? Chokhmah is knowledge of Hashem, is combining yira and ahava and dveikut. That's what brings a person to chokhmah. What is dat? Dat when you use the word dat, vayeda Adam et Chava, what does it mean by yeda? He knew her inside and out. We use dat to know and to recognize that is becoming a part of who HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. That is to become a part of becoming one, just as we become one in a marital way, so we become one with Hashem in this way of dat, of knowledge of Hashem. החסידות האמיתי, הנרצה והנחמד, רחוק מציור שכלנו. The true Chassidut is hidden from us. And it's so far from just being able to imagine with our minds what it is, ki zeh davar pashut, because this is something that is very simple. And that is that milta de la ramya aleit enish la adate, that it's obvious that there's something that we don't occupy, that doesn't occupy a place in our minds. And even though that is the beginnings of Chassidut is inbred within us, in the heart of every truthful person, if that person doesn't use that ability, then it's not, not going to come to the fore. And even though it's implanted deeply within a person, Hayashar התחילותיו ויסודותיו, אם לא יעסוק בהם, the details, but he's not going to recognize, but we won't recognize what those details are. יעבור עליהם ולא ירגיש בם, and we will see them, but we won't be able to relate to them. ראה, so see, כי אין דברי החסידות בענייני היראה והאהבה וטהרת הלב, הדברים מוטבעים באדם עד שלא יצטרכו אמצעים לקנותם, אלא ימצאו אותם בני האדם בעצמם, כמו שימצאו כל תנועותיהם הטבעיות. And think that yira, the Chassidut, and yira and ahava, and fear and love of Hashem, and connection, taharat halev, connection with the heart. The heart is when we take something in, we say we put it on the heart. But then when we leave it on the heart, when we leave it within, we don't really try and delve into it. For delving into it, we use seichel. So we have to blow off, just think of hot coals. When hot coals are lying in the grill and you say, that's nothing, that's just that dust that's on it. You blow on it and it becomes white hot. In order to be able to get to the nitty-gritty of these of Chassidut, we have to blow on it and make it fiery hot so that we can start to think about it and it becomes ingrained within us. אלא ימצאו אותם בני אדם אמצעים כמו שימצאו כל תנועותיהם הטבעיות. You'd think that this is going to be simple like anything else, like kashena, v'hayakitza, like going to sleep and waking up. When we're tired, we know we have to go to sleep. When it's time, when we're rested, we know we wake up. Ela, harava sova, or hunger and satisfaction, satiety. Yeah, so when we're hungry, we take something to eat and we're satisfied. You might think that these things are ingrained in us so that they become natural like everything else within us. אלא ודאי שצריכים הם לאמצעים לתחבולות לקנות אותם. But we need the steps with which to be able to use them and to get to their source. ולא ייבצרו גם כן מפסידים להם שירחיקום מן האדם, so that they aren't neglected within a person. ולא יחסרו דרכים להרחיק מפסידיהם, and people aren't going to realize what they're missing. Im kein efo. So therefore, איך לא יצטרך להוציא זמן על העיון הזה לדעת אמיתת הדברים? How do we not look into them and set time aside to look into and try to understand the depth of all of these midot? Midot not meaning characteristics, but the way to acquire that and become a part of that characteristic, become a part of us. And to know how to acquire it and how to keep it going within ourselves. Where is that going to come from if we don't pursue it? וכיוון שכבר התעמת אתו כל חכם צורך תמימות עבודה וחובת טהרתה וניקיונה, and since the truth of every chacham who goes into this understands the cleanliness, in other words, that which is devoid of anything that will sully it in a chomeriotic way, in a material way, and to acquire it. Shezulat ele einena nirtzet vadai klal. That without it, we have to understand that we haven't fulfilled ourselves at all. Elanim eset umuto'evet ki, but it will be forgotten and spurned. Ki kol havavot doresh Hashem. Beautiful. Kol havavot doresh Hashem. Every heart, every intellect seeks what it is that Hashem wants of us. V'chol yetzer machshavot hu mevin, and Hashem understands the thoughts in every person. We can only work on a one-to-one. HaKadosh Baruch Hu pays one-to-one attention to the entire world at the same time. Chol havavot doresh Hashem. Ma nene b'yom tochacha. What are we going to say at the end of 120 years? Im hitrashanu min ha'iyun hazeh. If we spurned learning this, v'hinachnu davar shehu kol kach mutal aleinu, shehu ikar ma Hashem Elokeinu she'oel me'imanu. And we wouldn't have developed that which Hashem put into us to try and find that which Hashem demands of every single one of us. Hayitachen? Is it possible? Sheyiga v'ya'amod sichlenu b'chakirot asher lo nitchayavnu bam? Perhaps we're putting our efforts someplace where they don't belong. In thought, in dissertations that mean nothing and aren't going to go any further. Or we learn dinim, laws that really don't apply to us because we're not kohanim. We might have to, we might look at them in a cursory way, but if we throw ourselves into that limud and we're Yisraelim, what are we doing with that? And what we owe to Hashem, we're going to relegate to habits. And we're going to relegate it to something that becomes run-of-the-mill, that which is so totally required of us. Are we not going to develop it for ourselves in the way that Hashem wants us to develop it? So, since it's clear to every person that there is a need for perfection, that there is a need for Avodat Hashem, and that the necessity for it is purity and cleanliness. Purity in that we don't mix it with anything that hinges on the self, and cleanliness to have that kedusha. So the Medrash Rabbah in Shemot explains that Hashem sees all generations simultaneously. This is something only Hashem can do. The human being is incapable of doing this, but it's clear that every wise person that perfects a relationship with Hashem will bring a purity and a cleanliness to this relationship with Hashem, seeking a relationship with Hashem that has to be on Hashem's terms, not ours. If we think that we can hide that from Hashem, just know that although we daven together, and although we're in a kahal, in a congregation, and although Hashem discerns the elements of everybody's tefillot separately, He knows what we're asking and whether there's an ulterior motive, what the ulterior motive is. The cleanliness that the Ramchal refers to is the purity of the heart to forge our relationship with Hashem. We sometimes have the idea that when we daven for something, that's a fallacy. The kavana, our direction in our davening is supposed to take, should only discern the words that we use in order to exalt Hashem, not to enhance our chances of Hashem listening to our personal problems, gripes, or requests. There's room for that. Yes, there is room for that in parts of the Amidah. But as far as the rest of davening goes, it should be completely, totally, and absolutely for Hashem, to express our love of Hashem, our fear of Hashem, our devekut in Hashem, our closeness to Hashem, and the desire to be even closer. So how will we learn that if we don't embrace it, if we don't struggle with it, if we don't implant the effort into our daily functions, if our behavior is one of making our lives easier, then we're in what we call survivor mode. This doesn't bring us closer to Hashem. It has a more deleterious effect on us. In survivor mode, we become depressed, we become discouraged. We whatever condition we find ourselves in, we're battling instead of working with it. Instead of thinking, what is our purpose in this world? What do we control? What are our conditions? What are our thoughts? And find our particular situation that brings us to a greater recognition of Hashem. In other words, we become the conduit, which is what we've been saying, and it's just stressed over and over. And we become the conduit through which Hashem shows the world what He accomplishes through human beings. I'm going to stop here, even though we have not gotten to where we're going to start from tomorrow night, and I will do another hour with you, or whatever, however long it takes to bring us to there. So we are now, I will show you in the English translation, we're on page 3 and paragraph V'kivan shekvar, since the need for perfection. And in and the other one, we are in page Dalet, and in the middle of the page, so I'm just going to show you that. We're on Hay. Okay, Mitzvah Hashem Melumada. We're here. line 1, 2, 3. So I will see you later on tonight, and have a wonderful day. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate, and have a good day. Let me see how to